Greetings, YouTube. Full disclosure, I am getting ready to head out the door for California to support and be at my subscriber's wedding, Mr. Zachary Savoy. But I have to kind of touch on this. I don't know when I'm going to post on my channel, probably sometime today on this Thursday. But this is another discussion about changing the descriptions of champions based off of what they're intended to do and not what they're doing. And there's been a lot of confusion on this. And there's people who message me saying, this is another nerf. There are people who are saying, stop using the word nerf. It's just a change to the description. I still am confused for two reasons. One, that this is a problem that happens at all to a company that spends millions of dollars annually trying to make sure, hopefully, that their champions are working as intended, quote unquote, because we know that there has been a historical issue, particularly in 2019, with Kabam simply not testing their champs enough. So they use not just content creators in their content creator program, but like anybody to actually test their champs after they've been released. And then, like in this case, Clairvoyant's been out for a month, right? And so the fact that they're just now discussing that, that's my frustration. It'd be one thing if right before the champion was released, or maybe even the week, it's like, hey, y'all, just a heads up. But after the champion has been purchased, after so many people have spent so much money and time and units trying to pull this champion, whether it be in a featured crystal or maybe in the arena grinding for this champion, then to have any tweaks, it's just deflating to somebody emotionally. And even if it's just a change to the description, it's still a change, and it makes your brain after a while have trust issues with wanting to go after champs and crystals, because even if they happen to be amazing like Cold Obsidian, then there's a chance they could be rebalanced. And so while this is not the same as Cold Obsidian, I don't want to make that connection too hard. I do think that this is a huge issue in regards to just, we shouldn't have to worry about this, even if it's just updating a description, and yet this is the nature of the game in 2019. So Kabam Zibbit, I always don't know how to pronounce that, but that's how I pronounce it. Hey there, the intention of Claire's Nullify ability, which, for the record, several people told me their favorite thing about using Claire now is her Nullify ability, particularly with unstoppable champions, is to nullify an effect the opponent would gain after Claire lands an attack such as Fury granted when struck. She is not supposed to have the ability to safely remove unstoppable buffs if they are already pre-existing. Her loop is supposed to be more about putting on buff immunity to prevent buffs to begin with. I'm telling you, this is a wordy concept for me who plays this game every day. If you were reading this to somebody that didn't play it, they'd be pretending like you were talking about calculus or something. Immediately removing unstoppable safely is a powerful mechanic and not one that Claire is intended to have, which sucks because as Mystic champions do remove buffs, think about things like Doctor Strange, Symbiote Supreme, Scarlet Witch as examples. If you're giving us a champion that is of a class that has almost no new champions in the past couple of years outside of Diablo, and then you're acknowledging that something is a powerful mechanic, but that you don't want that champion to have that mechanic, it's just deflating. Quite simply put, it's emotionally frustrating. And even if this is the case, if you thought that this is what the champion was supposed to do when you went for this champion, you got excited to rank up this champion, and that's a discussion we don't have enough in this community. It's not just about whether or not a champion was able to be opened. It's about having the ability to put money, like real money, into rank up resources that you then push for a certain champion to be ranked up, and you can't get refunds on those resources when champions change. You might get ranked down tickets about once a year if you're lucky, but even then, you're not getting the awakening gems or signature stones that you use to put in those champions, so they're not full rank down tickets like there would be in an ideal scenario. So I had to mention that. We are working on updating the description of this ability to be more clear about how this ability is intended to work, and that it works differently from champions who are intended to be able to remove an existing unstoppable buff safely. So again, this is not a Cole thing, right? This is simply changing the description of the champ. But at the same time, who's writing these descriptions? Are they like high school interns? And how come you're not understanding the words that you write for champions, or for that matter for masteries? It's it's a too common problem that shouldn't happen in like a remedial English class. Nevertheless, a multi-million-dollar company. And personally, I read this and I thought, man, I wish Claire had that powerful mechanic. We get so few good Mystic or even any Mystic champs a year now that it would inspire people to want to go for her. And the few times that we've had amazingly powerful Mystic champs like Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange, they've been nerfed somehow to the ground. This is not happening with this champion, but at the same time, this champion doesn't have the same level of hype that those champions once upon a time did before patch 12.0. And I realized that they felt the need to rebalance, but I don't know, it's a little deflating. It's a little deflating to see that a month after a champion's released, they're just now getting down to saying, oh yeah, the description's wrong. And on top of that, to say that there is that powerful mechanic of removing Unstoppable that we aren't interested. Because you know what I would have loved? This is the point of this video. You realized, oh, we promised or we hinted at something in the champion's description that the champion was supposed to do. There's two options with this. There's option one, which is what they're doing, which is to say, we'll just change the description. Or there's option two to say, hey, let's buff this champion to how they were intended to be based off of their description, and let's just make them even better. That rewards the people who already went for her and have her, and that also incentivizes people maybe to go for her in the future. It's a pro player move. So that's really my takeaway from these kind of situations. If the description doesn't match the champion's abilities, okay, then make the champion's abilities match the description. Don't take away the description to match the champion's non-abilities. Maybe that's a crazy concept. Maybe I'm being too unreasonable here, but I try to side on my channel on pro player decisions, and that's really what would make people really happy. But instead now, it's this sort of shady, wait a minute, why did somebody write that in the description in the first place if it was never meant to happen? And we've had this discussion just far too many times in the past year, and it just weighs on you, and it gives you a chance to read somebody's descriptions and think, is this really what it's meant to be, or in a month is it going to change? And too often, unfortunately, it's going to change.